Hey guys, this is Nephis here, and one of my dear subscribers on YouTube, recently requested in the comment sections down below a sort of tank beginner setup kit or build setup for people who are just getting into the game or maybe just getting into tanking in general in the Elder Scrolls Online. And I'm more than happy to oblige. I'm more than happy to provide you all with the content you want to see. So in this video, we are going to be doing exactly that. So from the beginning, we're going to start on the character creation screen. If you are new to the Elder Scrolls Online, and there have been actually recent huge changes to racial passives, the three best races, in my opinion, for what I'm about to show you in this video is going to be Breton, Imperial, or Nord. These three races will probably be your best tank races as a beginner tank. So in my opinion, Imperial is probably the best out of the three. It's a very easy race to handle, and what I mean by that is its passives recently saw changes and adjustments and buffs and so on. After trying out both Nord and Imperial on live as of the Raftstone patch in the ESO, I've determined that the Imperial has actually better sustain, particularly in 4-man dungeons and other content. So in terms of sustain, Imperial is definitely going to be, for sure, slightly better than Nord. While Nords do get the ult regen passive and the physical damage mitigation in comparison to the Imperial is going to be very, very easy for people who are starting to learn tanking. So I highly recommend Imperial over these two. But if you do not have the Imperial race unlocked through the Crown Store, or if you don't want to buy it, then I would go with the Breton or Nord in that scenario. As for gender, obviously doesn't matter. Class-wise, we're gonna just be looking at Dragon Knight class, because the Dragon Knight class is definitely the most easiest and obviously the most used tank class in the Elder Scrolls Online. It's a very natural tanking class. It has many passives, very suited for tanking. It's very easy for anyone, regardless of skill level, to handle. And compared to the other classes, there's not really much of a learning curve. So it's a very straightforward class, very easy to handle, and that's pretty much why we're going to be looking at Dragon Knight tanks for your beginner setup. Alright, you've picked your race, you've picked your class, now what? Fortunately, the Elder Scrolls Online is full of very nice people, so whether you're a lone adventurer who has no friends, or maybe you're just in some trade guilds that you don't really interact with for the purpose of making gold in the game, you may find a kind soul kind enough to help you craft gear. And I'm also going to assume for the purpose of this video that you are not a crafter, you just want to play the game. So you can ask or commission someone to help you craft gear. And it doesn't have to be terrifically expensive gear. It doesn't have to be 9 trait sets or a set that requires a crafter to go to Imperial City or some other place to craft you things, or to invest all of your gold and time into making this beginner set. Don't invest all of your gold and time into making your dream set yet, because most of the stuff that tanks use, that the best tanks use in endgame PvE, are droppable for the most part. So if you're starting out as a brand new tank, this is what you're going to be wearing. So these two sets, Seducer and Naga, are going to be the two sets you'll primarily wear on your body. Now we're going to go with 2-piece Naga. And Naga Shaman actually is a 2-trait set, as you'll see here. This means that pretty much almost anyone in the game can craft it for you. That you don't have to search for a 9-trait crafter or anything, or someone who's invested their time into crafting. It's pretty easy. I mean, even within a few days, you can definitely craft it yourself, rather than wait for someone to craft it for you. And that's one of the reasons why we chose Naga Shaman. Also, the 2-piece bonus is actually pretty nice, especially when you're a Dragon Knight tank. It stacks very, very well with your Draconic power passives. You have Burning Heart. When a Draconic power ability is active, like Talons or Green Dragon Blood, or whatever you want to use, you get 12% healing received. So people are going to be hitting you with heals, most likely healers, with 12% boosted heals, and that's quite a bit. And then you also have to take into account Elder Dragon, which is increasing your health recovery by 5% if you have Draconic power abilities slotted on your bar. And while the health recovery is not that much, it is a thing, I guess. Now the 2-piece Naga Shaman is going to be your 4% healing taken. So that's going to add to the 12% healing taken. So overall you're going to be taking 16% healing taken in addition to Green Dragon Blood, which you will use. You get Minor Vitality from using Green Dragon Blood and having it active, which is an 8% healing received boost. So essentially you are going to have a 24% healing received bonus on your tank no matter what. And we have the 5-piece Seducer, and it's a very, very, very easy set to craft. Most people wouldn't even craft it for you, and you can craft it yourself, and it's a very useful set actually for most beginner tanks. And I highly recommend this set because it is actually going to be life-saving in many dungeons. If you want to draw yourself into veteran dungeons or even normal trials, it will save your life. It will help you sustain most of your skills. Now, as a tank in the Elder Scrolls Online, I'm not sure about other MMOs like World of Warcraft, most of your abilities that you're going to be using utility-wise and for yourself, like your healing and, ceasing the ads, the trash mobs, is Magicka-based. You're not using stamina-based skills to really do much other than maybe taunt and inflict minor maim, which is basically damage reduction on a boss or a target that you put it on. So again, you don't really see much utility here besides the basic tank stuff. But here we have so many Magicka abilities, so many. Igni Shield, which is very, very essential to the Dragon Knight tank kit, and very, very helpful to beginner tanks in surviving most dungeon instances, is Magicka based. So the Seducer will help you sustain quite a bit, and the 8% cost reduction is no joke, especially if you put it on a Breton or an Imperial. Is it for the craftable sets? Now you may be wondering what's going on with the jewelry and sword and board here, but I'll get to that later. Now, if you noticed, I have these crafted in particular traits and types of armor. So on the head, shoulders, chest, legs, and feet, we have heavy. Instead of medium armor clothing or light armor clothing, we have heavy pieces because these pieces give the most resistances or the most armor, as you can see from the numerical value under the named set. So the Sabatons have 2341 armor, that's basically resistance, and the cuirass has 2676. So these pieces will give you the most armor, and I highly recommend you craft these pieces in heavy. As for the gloves and light sash, these are the least resistance giving pieces, so you can get away with doing medium bracers, which have more resistance than light gloves, and a light sash, which doesn't have too much less than medium belt. So that's why we went with medium gloves and light belt. And trait wise, it's sturdy. Now, if you're new to crafting in the Elder Scrolls Online, there are 9 traits for armor, for weapons, and for jewelry. Sturdy is one of those 9 traits for armor, and it reduces the cost of block by 3.5% per piece at a purple quality. So quality goes from white to green to blue to purple and then to gold. And your trait will also increase in its effectiveness and quality along with the quality of your armor. But again, you don't want to invest too much into the setup because you'll get much better gear along the way, including undaunted monster sets, which we'll kind of briefly touch on later. For the sword and board and jewelry, I would highly recommend getting Battalion Defender. Jewelry and the weapons and the shields wise is very, very, very cheap. It is very plentiful, bountiful. If you guys are having trouble finding it on your guild traders near you, I would highly suggest checking out tamrieltradecenter.com and searching for these items there through their filter. Very easy to find, very cheap. Like shields can go anywhere from a couple hundred gold to maybe 5,000 gold for blue or purple quality. And the Battalion Defender set, I kind of went over this in a separate video on my YouTube channel earlier in the past. Battalion Defender is extremely strong as a tank set. It's one of the few tank sets that ZeniMax hasn't really screwed up in terms of your max stat bonuses and the 5-piece bonus. So if you guys want to check out that video as to why it's good and how it works, feel free. The link is down in the description below, but briefly we're going to be going over this. The 2-piece bonus gives you more health. More health is okay and decent. It's pretty nice for tanking. The 3-piece bonus is 1071 max stamina, which is a very rare bonus piece to see on most tanking sets. If you can see, like for tanking sets like the Dragon Guard set, it just literally gives you max health, healing taken. Evan just gives you max health, healing taken, and so on. Green Pack gives you max health, health recovery. So the stamina bonus is really nice to have, really nice to see on a tanking set. So the 4th piece bonus is more healing done, so effectively you're going to be going up to 26% healing received with the Shaman, the Draconic passives, and so on. And you don't have to obviously transmute your jewelry because you come in healthy, and this will help you later on. Essentially, more health means more mistakes allowed as a tank in ESO, because most of the mechanics are near one-shots or very, very punishing if you don't follow through, and so on. And on the enchantments for the jewelry, the enchantments for jewelry will be all Magicka recovery. As you can see, I've enchanted them with purple glyphs. Again, not a huge deal, not expensive at all, and not a huge investment on your part in terms of gold or time. Just don't go gold glyphs or gold jewelry or gold armor and you'll be good. You can still tank effectively in most veteran dungeon content with gold with purple gear. You can tank most vet trials with purple gear. So as a tank, unlike a DPS, you don't really have this pressure to immediately make your gear legendary gold. You're just sort of getting by with purple if you have to. And for the Battalion Defender sword and board, now I will recommend you guys to try golding out weapons, because weapons for a tank is pretty important this patch, especially because the value of your enchantment, particularly Crusher enchantment, but you don't really have to. You can just keep it purple, no big deal. So the Battalion Defender on sword and board, trait wise you want decisive or infused, doesn't really matter. So you can get away with whatever you want. The trait on your shield, it doesn't have to be reinforced, as you can see in the video. It can be anything you need. At this point, after you look at your stats, okay, I have 38k max health, I have 16,000 max Magicka, and 17,000 max stamina. What more do you need? That's the question you should be asking yourself. What resource do I need the most next? Do I need more health? I don't think so. I think 38,000 health is fine for most dungeons I'm doing. Cool. Do I need more stamina to dodge roll, to block, to bash? Maybe I will maybe I'll buy an infused shield and put max stamina enchantment on it, and that'll give me a slight stamina max stat boost. And so on. It's basically, at this point with the shield, it's more about what you need, more than min-maxing or thinking what's the best. Just think about what's best for you. And for the lightning staff on the back bar, this is debatable. I mean, I would really get used to having a lightning staff on your back bar as a tank, especially as the Rastone patch because of the nerf to enchantments on one-handers. So as you can see, your Crusher enchantment is half of what is on a two-hander weapon. Bow, a maul, a greatsword, or a staff. And this is because they had to nerf the stam DPS and PvP builds. So I would get used to using this kind of setup, a sword in more than one bar, and a staff on the back bar. Now, we're going to be going over skills. It's going to be a long explanation. You can skip ahead to the CP if you're more curious about the CP or champion points. For the Ardent Flame passes for the Dragon Knight, you don't really need Lava Whip, you don't really need the second skill, Claw. You will need Engulfing Flames. So Engulfing Flames, if you read it, if you put this on enemies or bosses, they take 10% more damage from all fire attacks. So if you see Magicka DPS builds using fire staves in your group, Engulfing Flames is a very good buff for them. Unrelenting Grip is very priceless as a skill. It basically chains in all the ads, chains in the trash, and it's also a soft hunt. And I'll be discussing soft hunts in a later video, but basically it's a very good skill to pull in stray enemies and stack everything in a neat pile for your DPS to just completely obliterate. You don't really need the fifth skill for Ardent Flame. And that's pretty much it. For skill bar setup, I'll go over that in a bit. We briefly touched on the Draconic Power at the beginning of this video. I would highly recommend using Hardened Armor if you're not sure or comfortable with the Mage's Guild skill called Balance. Basically, the difference is Hardened Armor gives you a small shield, and it's a nice shield for sure, and it's a nice duration, but it also gives you Major Resolve and Major Ward, which increases your physical and spell resistance by quite a bit, 5.2k. And also, it returns magic damage to any enemy that uses direct damage attack against you. And this plays into the Draconic passive. If you have it active, your healing received is increased by 12%. Obviously, this doesn't stack. So if you had both of these skills, Green Dragon Blood and Hardened Armor, active at the same time, you don't get 24% healing received. You only get 12%. So that's pretty much it. Your Choking Talons is, again, like your chains utility for the group. It basically roots your enemies to the ground for a short duration. It's in a 6 meter AoE around you, and they are actually afflicted with Minor Maim, which reduces their damage done by 15%, and that's pretty huge. Minor Maim is a pretty huge debuff used by tanks. It's basically the difference between someone getting one shot and someone barely living. That's how important Minor Maim is. And Green Dragon Blood is your emergency heal. Obviously, the higher health you have, it's according to the description, if you read it, basically heal for 36% of your missing health. The higher health you have, the more effective it is, and the lower your health is when you use it, the bigger heal you get. So that's your emergency heal. This is Dragonfire skill. It's basically a morph skill of wings. This is very situational. As a Dragon Knight tank, you can reflect things back at bosses or certain ads. Can be very dependent on the fight. I particularly like using this in Fangler Hardmoon, on Durvokun, but we'll get there soon. Deep Breath. This is also a great utility skill, and as you've noticed so far, these are all Magicka based abilities, so that Seducer's coming in handy. The Deep Breath is, again, another utility skill, and it interrupts anything that you hit with it in an AoE radius of 8 meters. This means that if there are a lot of ads in this game, there's a lot of enemy NPCs in this game that just stop what they're doing, and then they take several steps back to channel something to throw at you or to throw at your group members, and this can actually hit them and interrupt them once they start channeling. and then they're set off balance and so on, and stunned for a short duration after they get interrupted. So it's a very nice AoE interrupt skill to have in certain dungeons and certain places. For the Earth and Heart passive, this is pretty much your lifeline as a Dragon Knight tank. The Magma Shell is going to be your emergency oh shit button. Basically what it does is make you nearly invincible. Now the difference is, now the key word is nearly. Magma Shell does not make you completely invincible. All it does is cap damage to 3% of your max health. So if you are in a one-shot mechanic, typically Magma Shell will not save you. It's not intended to have you survive like 60 to 100k plus hits. But yeah, it is a very oh shit emergency button to have to mitigate any incoming damage. You don't really need Stone Fist, you don't really need any CCs as a tank in this game. The only CCs you'll probably get is the Choking Talons and the Unrelenting Grip, the chains. You don't really need this either, but the morphs are interesting. But again, your own group will come with their own buffs. Igneous Shield, again one of your lifelines from the Earth and Heart skill line. It's basically a shield that gives you increased healing done by 25%. Now, if we look back at all the passives and the bonuses we get from healing received as a Dragon Knight, well, Igneous Shield basically boosts that by another 25%. And you do your own healing by 25%, and that applies to Dragon Blood. And the heal you get from Deep Breath as well. It's pretty insane. So this is what I meant by Dragon Knights being a very, very natural tanking class in the Elder Scrolls Online. And yeah, this is also going to play into later passives like Mountain's Blessing. When you cast any Earth and Heart ability, including Igneous Shield, which is a pretty damn good shield to mitigate any damage, you and your group gain minor brutality for 20 seconds, increasing weapon damage by 10%. This means you're buffing your DPS if there's a stamina DPS in group. Also, you generate 3 ultimate every 6 seconds every time you pop Igneous Shield. And ultimates in this game are ridiculous, and the faster you get ultimates, potentially the closer you are to saving your life and others. And also Helping Hands is a huge deal every time you pop Igneous or an Earth and Heart ability, most likely Igneous in most cases. You restore stamina back, so in this game as a tank you cannot regain stamina when you're blocking or sprinting. So when you're blocking, you're losing stam bit by bit, and as you can see just now, it just switched to 0 when I was blocking. So Igneous is going to give you an additional stam back, so watch this. As you can see, it's going up steadily even though I'm blocking, and I'm getting no stam recovery. This is another reason why Dragon Knight tanks are so great in the Elder Scrolls Online and very great for beginners. But that's enough of the skills. Scale bar setup wise, I'm going to be just quickly be showing you guys what the scale bar setups will look like. On the front bar we have Engulfing Flames to buff the Magicka DPS. If there's no Magicka DPS in your group, you can feel free to put Chains on the front bar instead, or something else like a Ranged Taunt from the Undaunted passive. And this is another skill that is worth mentioning. The more you do dungeons and such, the more you'll level up in the Undaunted skill line. And one of the skills you can unlock is Inner Range, which is a Ranged Taunt, again Magicka based. There is a stamina morph of it, but it's a stam drain, so I would probably go with the Magicka morph of the Ranged Taunt. Or you can put it like that. Pierce Armor, it's basically a debuff slash taunt. And penetration is king in this game in ESO. You always want to have Pierce Armor for both your stamina and Magicka DPS. Igneous Shield, very very nice on the Sword and Shield bar when you're blocking. Heroic Slash for the minor maim, and also gives you minor heroism, giving you 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for the next 9 seconds is active. That's huge. And this plays into how much ulti-gen Dragon Knights get from Mountain's Blessing. So this can stack with Mountain's Blessing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, hardened armor along with balance. If you're confident in your healer's ability to keep you alive, use balance over hardened armor. It gives the same major war, major resolve. However, balance gives you back Magicka in exchange for sacrificing some of your health. So again, only use this with a healer, or if you're confident that you can survive with some off healing from the DPS. And on the front bar you have Horn or Magma, depending on the content. Your Horn will grant major force to your DPS, increasing your crit damage by 15% for 9 seconds. This is huge. It's what a lot of raid tanks use to buff their groups. And on the back bar you can have something like this: Choking Talons, Unrelenting Grip, Wall to proc your Crusher enchantment, to debuff or give more penetration for the group. And we have, this is kind of an empty slot, but you can have something else. And pretty much any skill you want to put on there. And Green Dragon Blood as an emergency heal. Obviously all these skills are interchangeable depending on your need, depending on the fight. So there's no real solid guide here as to what you should be using. It will all depend on the fight. Passives wise, don't forget to put points into Grace, Evocation, and Spell Warding in your Light Armor's tree, because it's you have to read this carefully. These first 3 passes in the Light Armor tree will be given to you regardless of whether you're wearing 5-piece Light Armor or not. The same thing for Medium Armor. There's 2 passes that are really nice for tanking: Athletics, which decreases the cost of your dodge roll by 4% for each piece of medium armor equipped, and Windwalker, which increases your stamina recovery by 4% per piece of medium armor equipped, and also reduces the stamina cost of your abilities per piece of medium armor equipped. And also Athletics gives you movement speed when you sprint. And why would you have light armor and medium armor passes? Well, ultimately as a tank you want to get to Undaunted Metal. The more dungeons and achievements and content you do, PvE wise, that has to do with the Undaunted skill line, you'll eventually get to the Undaunted Metal, and this increases your max health, stamina, and Magicka by 2% per type of armor. So what we have here is what we call in the game 5-1-1 setup. So you got 5 heavy, 1 medium, 1 light, 5-1-1. And all tanks usually go 5-1-1, not 7 heavy or anything, you don't really need it. And the 5-1-1 actually gives you extra resources. So that's 6% more max health, max stam, and max Magicka that we get simply from wearing 5-piece heavy, 1-piece medium, and 1-piece light. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Obviously you want all of your passive points put into heavy armor. And you also want to make sure in terms of crafting, just like a DPS, you want medicinal use. When using potions, resulting effects last longer. And what kind of potion should you use? Obviously that depends on the content, but most tanks typically use tri-stat potions for most content in this game. As you can see, it restores health, Magicka, and stamina immediately, and gives you added Magicka recovery, health recovery, and stam recovery by 20% for over 45 seconds, which is boosted by the medicinal use. Lastly, you have the option of going Vampire as a tank. This is optional, you don't have to be, but I highly recommend Vampire because of the Undeath passive and the Supernatural Recovery passive. So you get these passives if you are stage 2 or stage 3 higher in the case of Undeath. And what Undeath does actually is it reduces your damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while you are below 30%, 50% health. So the lower you are, the less damage you take in terms of health. So it's a very, very useful trait passive to have. You don't ever want to be stage 4 vampire. There's absolutely no need for you to be a stage 4 vampire. So if you ever are a stage 4 vampire, feed off of an NPC or just use a bloody marrow and then use your food again. Speaking of food, You'll probably want to go with purple tri-stat food, CP150, gives you max Magicka, max stam, and max health. So in the end, guys, you will want to see stats like these. You have the Atronach Mundus, and there's honestly, for most tanks, you want to go the Atronach or the Lord. So the Lord will give you more max health, and the Atronach gives you a base Magicka recovery as well, which adds to your current Magicka recovery. And with Seducers, that's also boosted because Seducers gives you 2 piece bonuses of 124 Magicka recovery while giving you 8% Magicka cost reduction. So these are the stats we want by the end of the day, guys. 16,000 max Magicka, 38,000 health, 16,000 stamina. And this is of course without a potion. So if you pop a potion, you get even more Magicka recovery. Now obviously we have to talk about champion points. Those stats were without all my champion points put in, but this is what your champion points are going to look like when you are at 160 CP. Obviously you'll get CP very, very fast, but this is generally what it will look like, and I'll show you guys what it's going to look like at 300 CP and then at 810 CP. For the 810 CP, actually just check out my other videos if you are interested in red and green CP for veteran trial content or veteran arena content. But other than that, I'll go over 300 CP as well and 810 CP. So for the Steve, we have 11 Ironclad for CP160, 43 Hardy, 1 Thick Skin, and 43 Arcanist, 13 Shadow Ward, 43 Blessed, and 13 Thaumaturge. And this CP is what's gonna look like when you are at 300 CP, 24 Ironclad, 56 Hardy, 20 Thick Skin, and the green trees, 15 Warlord, 8 Bashing Focus, 43 Arcanist, 23 Shadow Ward, and 11 Tumbling. For the blue CP, 43 Blessed, and 57 Thaumaturge. And obviously your champion points in terms of the green and red CP trees will be dependent on the trials or content or dungeons you do, but in general it should have a similar concept if you're in a dungeon with both physical and magical damage present. So we have 81 Ironclad here, 61 Thick Skin, 56 Hardy, 56 Elemental Defender, 16 Heavy Armor Focus, the 16 can also go into Quick Recovery. Green Tree wise, 37 Warlord, 8 Bashing Focus, 64 Arcanist with the same setup we have, Naga and Seducers, 43 Tenacity, 46 Tumbling, 72 Shadow Ward, 100 Blessed, and we don't really need much more than this because all our pieces are sturdy, as shown in the video. 100 Blessed, 23 Elfborn, 27 Elemental Expert, and we want 120 points into the ritual overall, so we can get the Last Stand perk. When you fall below 20% health, you gain Major Heroism, giving you a shit ton of ultimate in a very short amount of time, which may potentially save your life if you're very close to, you know, popping a magma shell as a oh shit emergency. But yeah guys, that is pretty much it. I hope you've learned a lot from this beginner setup video, and if you have any questions at all about the setup or anything else or any other sets, let me know down in the comments below. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I am very eager to keep pushing content out for you guys. Whatever you guys want to request, let me know down in the comments as well. And until next time, as always, stay safe and have a great adventure.